We're going to be doing some digital painting in Photoshop, so I have created a folder with a lot of photographs of skies and made them available to you. A JPEG image. Let me find a JPEG image here. I've got a JPEG image here. All right, so I'm going to double click on it. I have to download it. Okay. I'm now going to go to the bottom here and I'm going to show it in the folder and I'm going to rename it. I'll rename it Sky. Okay, I'll call it Sky 1. Okay. So right click, open with Adobe Photoshop. Okay. Now I'm going to unlock the background. I'm going to select all, edit copy, and I'm going to create a new file. So I'm going to do File New. I want it to be for film and video. I want it to be 300 psi, and I want it to be, let's see, we go to inches, and I want it to be 16 inches across, and I want it to be 9 inches high. Okay, create, and I'm going to, I'll just pull these lines off here. I don't need them. Pull them off, pull them off. All right, and I'm going to do edit paste to paste my sky in here. Now I'm going to just enlarge the sky a little bit, edit, transform, scale, just so I can see it a little bit better. There we go. I'll just put it off to the side here. And now I'm going to create a color palette. So I need a new layer, new layer. Okay. And I'm going to take my foreground color and I'm going to just grab a color here. I'll hit OK. And I'm going to take my brush tool. I'm going to make the brush bigger. I'll make it fuzzier. There we go. And I'm going to just scribble a little here. All right, so I'm going to keep doing that until I have my complete color palette. So you have to pick up as many colors as you can from your sky. So I'm going through all my colors. I've just sped up the video and cropped a little bit of it out since the process is repetitive, but you get the idea. You just have to click on the foreground color swatch and then hover your mouse over each area of the sky and click on it and then change the color. So now that you have your color palette, you're going to create a new layer, new layer. And in this new layer, you're going to try and start drawing your sky. Now, there's several things that you should know, and that is that not only can you change the size of the brush and the fuzziness, but you can also change the opacity of the brush within the same layer. So in other words, if I change the opacity here to 26%, and I go, well, okay, I want to use this color. So I'm going to just click here on my foreground color and go here. I'll get this very nice sort of misty color. And you can layer it to make it more opaque in certain areas. Okay, not only can you do that, but you can take another color and layer it on top of that. So if I add another layer, new, layer, and I go and I pick a different foreground color, I can overlay two colors on top of each other. And by doing that, I can actually do a pretty decent facsimile of the sky.
You just have to remember later to put the opacity back to 100%.
So I want you to play around with trying to duplicate this sky. But the other thing that you can do is you can play around with using
either the blur tool or the smudge tool. The smudge tool icon looks like this and is often hidden underneath the blur tool.
The gradient tool, there it is, the smudge tool. Now the smudge tool can be adjusted the same as any other brush. You can make it big or small, hard or fuzzy. And the nice thing is that you can move pixels around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the strength of it to 100%. And I'm going to take, and you can actually smear and smudge the layers. So that's a fun tool to use. You can also go underneath and smear and smudge layers. So you can create a lot of interesting effects. You can also add a filter. So I'm going to add in the Gaussian blur, and that's kind of an interesting effect. And it'll affect one layer but not the other. So if I wanted to, I could go again to my brush tool. I could click on the foreground color and pick up this color. And I could go over what I already did. So I want you to play around with creating a sky that looks like an actual real sky.
In the layer underneath the clouds, you're going to create a gradient which is going to be just sky. I'll show you how.
I'm going to go to the darkest area of the sky, and I'm going to change the foreground color to the darkest sky color. And as a matter of fact, I'll even make it a tiny bit darker. And then I'm going to change the background to the lightest color that's just sky, not cloud. And now I'm going to go to the background layer back here, and I'm going to add another layer, new, layer. And I'm going to go to the gradient tool. So I'm going to hit these three dots and find the gradient tool. And you can see up here it says go from the foreground color to the background color. So let me just hide all these other layers to show you what that will look like. So this is pretty much just click at the top and drag, and you can click higher than the top if you wanted to. There we go. Go back to the, so again, if you go from the middle down, it'll be closer to the foreground color. If you go from above the top and end in the middle, it'll be closer to the background color. But you can get these beautiful gradients, and you can use them to kind of as a backdrop to the sky that you're creating. So that's another thing that you can do. Add a gradient as one layer, and then the other layer on top of it be clouds. If you look at my folder for skies, you're going to see, and I really want you to experiment here. If you look at my sky folder back in my drive, you're going to see many, many, many skies, all different layers and colors. Now, I want you to do a layer for your background that is only sky. So the entire thing, the entire stage is just sky. And I want you to see if you can, so you're not going to include the tree, you're not going to include the mountains. I want you to just challenge yourself to do different types of skies. So that is the assignment today. Again, the size of the document should be, let me just do image size and show you. Image size. I want it to be 16 inches across, 9 inches high, and 300 pixels per square inch.
When you are done, you're going to be exporting it as a JPEG.
Hide the palette, and you're going to hide the, you're ultimately going to hide the palette, and you're going to ultimately hide the original image, and the whole rectangle is going to be just a sky that you created. Okay, that is the assignment. You're not going to get rid of any of these layers or even merge them. You're just going to, when you're done, you're going to do file export as JPEG. So it's going to be an image of just sky that you're going to recreate after looking at actual photographs of skies and playing around with the different brush tools. All right, and that's the assignment. Since we're using Macs, if you see an HEIC image in the folder, you can download it. You're still going to have to double click on it and download it. And then you're going to have to open it in the Finder. And then you're going to have to just right click open. It'll open in preview. And then you're going to click file, and then you're going to click export in the menu bar, and you're going to export it as a JPEG. You can't open an HEIC file directly into Photoshop. You have to export it first, but luckily, since HEIC is a Mac format, it's easy enough to do on the Macs.